All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Flame, and welcome to Monday Master Motivation. I'm joined by our guest, Mr. Cheong Park. How are you, sir?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Master Flame. It's great to be here. It's an honor. I apologize. I do have a cold, but not COVID. I did get a negative confirmation.
Yeah.
Lost my voice a little bit, so I'll do my best. Okay.
Well, I appreciate you jumping on, even though losing your voice, not feeling so well. That's the kind of martial artist you are, right? I mean, when we get sick, sometimes we just got to push forward anyway, right?
Right. It's all about persevering.
Yes,
Persevering.
sir. Yes, sir. Well,
Yeah.
hey, just to remind everybody that's watching right now, or will watch later, whether on our YouTube channel or on our Facebook page, Master Motivation was created simply out of a need for me to recognize people not only in our industry, but people that have motivated me, inspired me. And I just thought to myself, I thought of this back as 2020 was ending. We were going into 2021, and I said, there's kind of a lot of darkness on social media, and I think it's lightening up a little bit because of COVID and everything that was going on. But I said, well, what can I do to add more light to social media? And I said, well, I know a lot of people that have really done a lot of good, and if we just spread that message, again, whether it's to the martial artists in the world, the school owners, the professional wrestlers, or just my friends and family that are watching this and learning about people that have motivated and inspired me. So you're a seventh degree black belt, grandmaster in your organization, and also the co CEO of Spark Membership, correct?
Yes. Yes, I am.
So talk about your background a little bit, and we'll just kind of keep this nice and easy, nice and flowing. And if anybody's watching, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop those in the comments, and we'll just chat away here.
Well, I've had the opportunity to be blessed, be trained by my late father, Grandmaster Cheong Park, and this year I celebrated 50 years in martial arts.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I'm 53. I know. I don't look at here in South Florida the Botox and the fillers. They do a good job. Um, I basically grew up with martial arts. It was just one of those things that was always part of my life. We immigrated here from South Korea in the early 70s. Even in Korea, we trained. My father was a very celebrated, very known martial artist. He was a Korean Rock Navy UDT SEAL. He was KCIA. He was also bodyguard for the late President Park. Unfortunately, the one that got assassinated, but not on his shift. It didn't happen on his shift. You know. So, and my father's also the documented 1967, world heavyweight champion taekwondo. WTF. It was WTF back then. So martial arts always been part of my life. I've had uncles who are also grandmasters that's been studying very long time all their lives. So I've been very blessed in a sense. I've been influenced by family, and I'm proud to say we're probably the last of the Mohicans in a generation, like kind of like the father to son lineage, which is really somewhat rare these day and age, which is a very special privilege and a blessing to have that kind of a background, because of course as a child growing up you don't know, so you take things for granted. Matter of fact, as an immigrant, we struggled, and to a point we lived in our martial arts school when things got hard. Things got hard, but we packed our stuff and just went right to the Taekwondo school and fitted in. And taking showers with the hose was just a common thing. And it was challenging. It was tough as a child. You know, even in high school, sometimes even in high school, we lived in Taekwondo school. I remember being dropped off by my friends at the street behind me. I go, stop! I got to sneak in. So I would kind of just like run to the street and cut this one house and jump the fence and go through the back of the martial arts school, which is where we lived. So growing up, it was challenging. It was tough, and I didn't really think that there was a future in martial arts because we grew up struggling. So after getting out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I certainly didn't want to do martial arts, and I was going through, of course, well, back then being 18 was a teenager. Now these days, being teenagers 12. So I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and that's when my mother decided to send me away, spend some time with my uncle, Grandmaster Hong, and he ran the school differently. He was also close friends with the late Grandmaster Junri. Grandmaster Junri was one of the pioneers to also, develop martial arts into a business system and helped a lot of schools be successful.
Mhm.
And I think that's also kind of EFC started with Nick Kokinas and Grandmaster Junri. So you can see I've been around the block,
Right, right, right. Well,
So
let me jump in real quick before we get too far ahead in the story, so to speak. You talked about you were born and raised in Korea. Is that right?
yes,
And when did you leave Korea to come to the United States?
I was around 7, 8 years old.
7, 8 years old. So, do you have some memories about you've talked about life was rough. You had a harder childhood. Things were tight. Do you remember? Do you have other memories of Korea and things that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, fortunately, in South Korea, because of my father's position in the government, we were a very comfortable family, and my father did a lot of assignment overseas, so our family was really well taken care of. And my father, I look back and see, he was very successful. So he wanted to pursue his dream and gave all that up, and came to America, which was the ultimate sacrifice. So, and of course, in Korea, I was a child, and I have vivid memories of living in big houses and dad bringing me toys every time he disappeared,
Hmm.
and coming here, right around a very somewhat sensitive age, around 9, 10 years old. And I remember coming, and first thing, I was so excited to see my father because I haven't seen him since I was like 3, 4 years old. That's when he first came here and established the foundation in Killeen, Texas, Fort Worth, because he had a close friend in the U.S. Army. So that's how we started, there, and that was his first school, was there. And so that's where it all started. That's where it
Hmm.
all started.
And it sounds like so that was a huge contrast. Your life as you started in Korea, being very successful, well taken care of, to moving to the United States and taking a risk. It sounds like, and things changed for you a little bit. Talk a little bit more about your childhood once you moved to America, as you were in grade school, middle school, moving into high school.
Well, I didn't speak English, so I was often bused to, I guess today would be called ESOL, special school to learn English. So I didn't get to really be in the regular school with the regular kids because of English, because I was always shipped off to this special English learning school. But growing up, being a martial artist, because we didn't have much, summers were basically going to the dojang and cleaning the school with dad, and basically him training us all day long, especially with the forms again and again and again, then again. And then, of course, going into the class and helping. So a lot of our childhood was spent in the dojang. And little time we had, my father was from the southern peninsula of South Korea, Busan, and he loved the sea. That's why he was a Navy SEAL UDT. And whenever we had time, he would pack up. He always had a van. He always had a van. We would pack up and go down to, back then it was Galveston, Houston area, Texas, and we would spend our part of our summers there fishing and snorkeling, and by the seaside, because that was his passion, was being in the water.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that you talked a little bit about being with your dad and the lineage of martial arts. I have a 16-year-old son, and one of my favorite things is to share martial arts with him. He's grown up in the school just like you have since he was you know since he was born. I think he came into the school when he was 3 days old. But he's grown up here and learned about everything that has to do with the martial arts. And it's funny that you said you didn't want to do martial arts as a teenager or as you were graduating high school. Because my son says to me now, Dad, I want to do my own thing. He actually says he wants to fight in the UFC. But anyway, I'm like, well, but you could be an instructor and you could be a coach. And I find all these ways that he's learned how to be a coach without directly teaching him how to be a coach. Were there a lot of things that you learned from your dad just by watching and not necessarily him, pointing it out to you?
Well, we're a traditional Korean family. So my father, he's my father was from the OG era, Grandmaster Junior OG era. So he was strict. He was very strict, training and everything. And you know, looking back, I realize it now, but what he did, the amount of training that he did, he I mean, traditionally from the generation they're not the most sit down son, let's have a father and a son talk. It wasn't that kind of era. It was mostly just done. And I realized that everything he was doing, had a purpose. Everything he was doing had a reason. And it was just like the Karate Kid movie. Mr. Miyagi, go do wax on, wax off. And he's like, why am I doing this? And then later on, only to realize, it was part of the training that he was getting them ready to be his very best. And just like the movie Showed Off, when he just, Kiss My Converse. Remember that movie? How he
Oh, I
was
love it.
going everywhere trying to seek the next master to learn from, and only to be found out that he was the master himself. And I think that's the most powerful knowledge and lineage he left behind. The consistency in the training, and everything was there. The spiritual side of martial arts, the true, authentic training, and and the life hardship. I think that's something he didn't intend on doing, but I look back, it's all part of it. I wouldn't change a thing,
Hmm.
because of that, it's made me the human being that I am today. It's made me very determined. It's made me, because you know people are more likely to grow and benefit from pain, to avoid pain rather than gain pleasure, and that's a proven fact. And when you're being raised as a child, you don't know any better. You don't know. You know certain things were not normal, like living in the dojang. You know what I mean? And not having certain things that your friends had. Okay, but as you look back and you can fit all the puzzles together, it makes you a stronger person of all the have-nots and the failures, because my parents worked very hard to provide for us, and so hard that one of the dreams for my parents, especially my mother, was to own a Asian market grocery store, and they were able to take our dojang and split it in half, and we're able to do that, but we're still living in the back. and and we started to thrive, but a very unfortunate accident happened. A few doors down, there was this printing place, and a poison gas leaked out through the entire plaza. And of course, ruined every inventory that we had in the market and winding up, shutting us down. And because of the contamination, of course, shut down the dojo. And that was a very, very big blow for my parents and working that hard and having to start over. My father was also an adventurer, a nomad. So he kind of like went from here to Florida to New York, back to Florida. So as a child, to a certain degree, we did, move around, and then we got settled here in, Florida. So when I reached that point in my life, didn't know what I wanted to do, sending away to my uncle, and he put the last piece of the puzzle, saying, "Listen, what your father did, you have no idea. There is a tremendous opportunity, and you can have a great future with martial arts." And he showed me, and he took me to a Grandmaster Junri seminar, and I learned this whole ways of doing everything. And, I was on fire. I was really motivated. And then from there on, you know, um, rest was, history. But I've also, been through my personal struggles too as a young man.
Well, before we talk about those struggles, can you tell us a little bit more about your mom and do you have brothers, sisters?
Yes, I have both my parents are deceased. I lost my mom to cancer. I have a younger brother and I have a younger sister. They're both martial artists, both school owners. Um, my brother and I are 2 years apart. My sister and I are, 5 years apart. And of course, we were the common, sibling, the brothers fighting a lot, and then ganging up on the sister, and sister having to stand up to the boys. So
Hmm.
she's kind of like the yin yang of me, kind of like the balance of us, because she's like the female, of the sibling,
Hmm.
and I look back, we were the traditional Korean family. My father taught me, of course, the martial arts and the spirit of martial arts and the values. And my mother basically taught me. I have a lot of her personality, but what I learned from her was importance of role of the yin and the yang. How my father worked so hard and my mother made sure everything was complimented. She was that foundation that's always was there for her kids, made sure the kids were taken care of, her husband was taken care of, and make sure we were fed, ate and bathed and clothed, and go out of her way to provide more above and beyond than any mom can. The unconditional love, is what she left behind, and that's something I feel in my heart. And the mental strength is what my father gave me, and that's a complete yin yang, and that's what I really, really take heart to today. You know, Making decisions how I feel gut wise, spirit wise, what's right and what's wrong, and mentally, being focused at the knowledge, and that's what my father was all about. He was always very focused and determined about teaching us certain values and that care and that unconditional love from my mom.
Mm, awesome. Well, it sounds like you got the best of both worlds there, put together, like you said, the yin and yang. Talk about your family now and how being raised the way you were raised with your mom and dad and how that affects your life and your family unit now.
Um, lot of a lot of who we are has a lot to do with what we are doing. Um, you know, I think as martial artists, we're very, very blessed people because we're a very passion-driven industry. I mean, I have friends who are so successful, and they're like, "Geez, I wish I had your passion and love for what you do." He's like, "I hate what I do, but I get to drive a Lamborghini and a Ferrari and a Mercedes every day, you know, because it gives me the amount of financial freedom. But I'd rather be an interior decorator. I'd rather be a CEO of a huge company that his parents left behind." So because of the fact that we're very passionate, driven industry, it's also an industry that struggles. So every successful martial artist at one point or another went to our personal struggles, hardships. And we all have been down that road. And we all have a story. What we have to become is good storytellers. We have to be not afraid of our past, the struggles, the suffering, the pain, and we have to express that. It's one of our responsibilities to do that because that is the way of a teacher. We cannot portray ourselves as this, oh, I am the master, and we have this perfect image of ourselves. No, we're not. We're not. We all came from those past, and we didn't just wake up one morning and became who we are today. Our success is tell a story. Our success is a journey, and some martial artists have sacrificed so much to be a martial artist. I mean, they left like high-paying jobs with benefits of 401ks and insurance to be paid a third of that to teach martial arts. I mean, that's a huge amount of sacrifice. And those are the things that we need to remind ourselves and remind our students because we followed our dreams, we followed our passion. And that's the inspiration now more than ever because of this pandemic that the world needs. But at the same time, this pandemic has really turned the entire humanity upside down, including our industry. When you go to an industry that's so passion driven, it is also a charity. Okay, there are a lot of school owners. It's a struggling industry, so there are a lot of school owners that's just getting by and making it, and some mid-level school owners making an okay living and providing and still getting ahead a little bit. All those schools, got taken away. A lot of our we lost a lot of our brothers and sisters. We saw in our own community schools shutting down left and right. Talking to a lot of industry experts, they said probably about 40% of our industry disappeared. But there are also a good percentage of school that survived this pandemic. And we really need to understand what that means because the mind is a very powerful piece of tool that works on a subliminal subconscious on an autopilot. So we don't really have an opportunity to see what's really going on. The impact, excuse me, the impact this pandemic has had on us is something that's powerful and that can also be empowering. And now this storm came by and wiped out a lot of houses, but certain ones, are still here today, and those are us. So we have a greater responsibility to those unfortunate loss to keep up the purpose. And that should be a very strong sense of motivation and a reminder the position that we are in. It's become a higher purpose.
Mhm.
it's become it's become
Yeah.
excuse me,
Let me,
guys.
that's okay. Let me let you take a break and maybe grab a quick sip of water for yourself.
Sure.
Let that voice rest up for a second. But you know what I hear you talking a lot about, which I think is super important, is just the passion that you have for martial arts and the passion. You talk about it being a passionate industry. I mean, you have to be passionate about what we do because there's a lot of things that we do and a lot of things that we give of ourselves that we never we never see the return. We never see the come back to us. We do it because we love it so much and we love to see our students grow. And I completely understand, the sacrifice that a lot of school owners make because sometimes you're in the school more than your home. We look at some of our friends that have very successful schools where they have a team of instructors that run their school. They're in and out. They don't have to be grinding it out every day, but there are many more school owners that are literally in there at I can remember when I started out 8 a.m. in the morning. I'd want to get there as early as I could and stay until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. I was the janitor. I was the receptionist. I was the instructor. I was, and that can be tough. That's a huge, huge sacrifice. And when you brought up the number 40%, I've heard it's anywhere from 30 to 70% of the schools have closed. I mean, what I feel when I hear that is such a huge loss because the ability that we have to impact our communities and impact the families around us ultimately lose because when a martial arts school closes, they don't have the ability to serve their community and to teach those students to become leaders. So I want to just let you kind of piggyback off that and continue
I
where
think
you're at and
now is a time more than ever that we have to step up to the plate and really take a greater sense of responsibility of our position. Now is also the time to unite because martial artists are one of the few people that guy across the street, the school across town. This this is now the time of a new mindset that we should reach out to the schools that are in our community that have survived this pandemic, that are there. And we should reach out to them and say, hey, you know, I really want to reach out. I know we've had our differences in the past, but at the end of the day, we're of same kind. We're both martial artists. We're both serving our community. And obviously we've done a good job because we are still here. You know, Joe B down the street of Joe's Karate closed down. You know, Janet Jones of Kung Fu closed down. Boom, boom. You know that. I know that. We're still standing. So let's unite and see how we can help each other out and keep the spirit of martial arts alive. And that's the mindset that we need to have.
Mhm.
That's now more important than ever. And
Sure.
also take this opportunity to since you're now in a higher position, after the storm, to start developing a new sense of knowledge, the knowledge that you've been wanting to have and putting off. Okay, whether it be higher level of training, whether it be higher, more knowledge of understanding the science of martial art business, it's a sense of obligation, and also be smart enough see how the world has pivoted and evolved. And I think the World Wide Web and the internet is a place that we have to make a presence in. That the traffic has exploded 100 times more. Something that would have taken decades to get there, it literally happened overnight. So as the world pivoted, as we survived the pandemic as martial artists, we have to pivot. So how have you pivoted since then? There are certain natural pivot that we've done that we need to realize. I mean, the entire industry went into Zoom. Okay, who would have imagined that? But we
Right.
quickly pivoted within weeks, within months to that. So we have the ability to pivot and make adjustment for survival. Why don't we keep pivoting for a higher level of survival, which is equal to higher level of success? So understand how internet is technology, and the ways to communicate through technology is a science. It's something I don't understand, but there are experts out there that can help us. Um, we don't come from a generation of technology. You know, this computer thing and software thing is all still Chinese to me. You know, art is still Chinese to me. But we have to get with the times. We have to start understanding in order to thrive, we have to use our time, wisely. We have to gather better tools,
Mhm.
more modern tools to really help us power forward. And the name of the game is about saving time, because you're going to reach a point in your life. This year, 2022, I will be embarking on my mid 50s. So now I'll be kind of like journeying into the other half of life. So half empty or half full, right?
Yeah.
So, as you reach a certain point in your life, no matter how successful or wealthy monetarily you become, you can never buy time.
Right.
But time has no, prejudice. Everybody's given the equal value of time. Okay, and you have to remember that, because how we use time determines our future. And I think one of the things I've learned recently is how valuable is time. When you do an action, what monetary value you put on that? Yes, you see the window dirty. Okay, I'm just gonna take 15 minutes and clean that window. But what did that 15 minutes just cost you? Or half hour, whatever it is. So one of the things I find myself being real cautious is my actions, which is future. So it's important that you make decision. I'm not saying on a monetary value, but do things that you can make a greater impact on. Okay, rather than taking 15 minutes to wipe the windows, take 15 minutes and call your students that are doing well and how much you appreciate them and how they're doing. A greater impact. Which 15 minutes makes a greater impact?
Mhm.
Taking the window, cleaning these dirty windows, or taking 15 minutes and getting on the phone and reaching out to students that I feel I can better impact. Okay, so I think that is very, very important that we, manage our time based on value, how much impact that we can make, and using technology, to our advantage. You know, instead of updating everybody, manually. Okay, just click and press update. Okay, rather than texting your students from your phone, just click, and just use technology. Technology is designed to save us time, but it's not smart. Okay, it's not a human being. It can only do what you tell it to do and your level of knowledge to understand it.
Mhm.
And as martial artists, we're naturally built to gain knowledge, but sometimes we've forgotten that because we're in our dojo and we have a set routine. And as much as martial artists, people don't like change, and it's hard to change. And the reason I make this comment is because a lot of people make a commitment. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Okay, and then they take the initiative, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, Y, and then they kind of like fizzle off. And that's very important to understand that, because when you do something, you got to think of it like you're writing down the alphabets. Okay. If you start taking the pen and you start writing A, B, C, D, and you go all the way to Y, and then you don't complete that Z, everything up to there, the energy, effort, time, or even the money has gone poof to complete waste. And it's important for that reason. When we make a commitment and we take that initiative, we have to finish it. Isn't that what we preach?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Isn't that what we've done? We started martial arts, we got our black belts, and we've gone beyond that.
Right.
We have to have the same kind of mindset in everything that we do.
Let's talk about this real quick. Let's back up because we're getting towards I want to talk a little bit about Spark and how that was created and why, and you've touched on it a little bit without directly mentioning it. Um, when you first opened your first school, now did you open your first school or did you take over a school that your father had opened?
I took over my father's only school that he had.
And then you built that school to how many schools?
Um, throughout the years, we've had our roller coasters. Currently, 7 schools
Hmm.
and affiliate schools that my father's students expands out globally. But here locally, here in South Florida, we have 7 locations.
And talk about when you first opened your school, some of the challenges that you faced, as a business owner in general, right? I mean, the martial arts business is a challenging one, but just as a business owner, what were some of your challenges early on?
My challenges early on was really understanding in order to be successful, you have to co-depend on other people, which means building a team, which means building a staff. And the most difficult thing that I think school owners will go through is letting go. Because also at the same time, we're as martial artists, we're control freaks. We
Hmm.
control our bodies, we control our minds, we control our emotions. We look for that perfect technique, make sure, because we want the end result to be perfect. Because if it's not all put together in a perfectual sequence, the neck of the bottle won't come off. So with that, we're built in that sense, and sometimes it's hard to let go. But you know what? Let me just do it. It'll be quicker. It's okay. Just let me go.
Hmm.
So we have to realize that building a team, because as a school owner, you're a general. Okay, you are the commander in chief. All right, you have to go to the highest level position and develop team in every tier down. And I
Hmm.
think that's one of the probably the most challenging and difficult thing to do. And it's like the unicorn. Well, how do you do that? How do you get staff development, staff attention? Well, it's no different than the training that you've been through. It's no different than the students that you've journeyed from white belt to black belt. It's the same exact format. You just have to now develop it in a sense for your staff.
Hmm.
What do you want them to learn? And it's no magic. You just have to take the time and lay all that out. And that was the most difficult thing for me to do. But once I did that, we just grew exponentially.
And did you initially plan when you took over that first school? Did you initially plan to open multiple schools, or were you satisfied with one school? Was it because you had people that wanted to grow? Is where that started to take place?
I think it was my father, because my father passed away in 2009, and when I was young, he's always pushed me. And there's one thing that he said to me that I will never forget. Never forget. He always said, "Chong Yong, you can do anything. You can do anything." And what I would talk about, like expanding, or he was always there pushing me, pushing me. So, of course, there's a natural sense of wanting to make your parents happy. So we've always had multiple schools for that reason. But at a young age, you make all the mistakes. Because I took over my father's school literally when I was, 18 years old, 18, 19 years old, and just went pure adrenaline. And the next thing you know, I was 23 years old. I had 6 schools, back then, grossing like $1 million. I was driving a brand new Acura NSX. But success at a young age, it's not a good thing because at the end of the day, you're still 25 years old. So I went through, of course, my struggles, and I was fortunate to shoot. And then in my 30s, early 30s, I started just declining. And also being successful at a young age is you become egotistical, you become arrogant. It's just part of the territory. And, that taught me a lot. That taught me a lot of having to almost lose everything and having to come back up again. That really humbles you and really makes you realize a lot of things. And then on your way back up, a lot of life tragic events happening, such as losing your parents, losing your loved ones. And working so hard because you have this vision in mind that you've never forgotten to be at a certain level of success, having to gone up out of pure adrenaline and then coming back down and then working way up again and just it's such a slow rise again. And it's hard because sometimes you feel like you're just stuck. You just stuck. And after a certain amount of just persistent and hard work, it just comes together. Yeah, I don't know how to put it. It just came together, one
Well,
day.
and I'd have to say that there's got to be a certain level of appreciation for the second go around, right? Because the first time, you're on this high, and then when you come down, from loss or failure, that different level of appreciation going back up the second time really changes your whole perspective and outlook. Correct?
Yes, because I've learned that anybody can be successful. Anybody can be successful, but maintaining your success on a longevity is a whole different story.
Mm-hmm.
As a young man, I thought, man, I'm doing so good. Oh my gosh, by the time I'm 30 years old, I'm going to be so successful, so rich. Oh my gosh. I remember literally saying that to myself in my 20s. And
Yeah.
then, taking a big tumble, it just really kind of puts into perspective when you're successful second time around.
Yeah, it reminds me of, just because of martial arts, we talk about it's really hard to earn a black belt, right? It's really hard to get there. But being a black belt and living the life of a black belt is so much harder, because you're a black belt literally the rest of your life. When you're earning on your way to earning your black belt, you're like you've got this vision, this path, this goal, this, gold at the end of the rainbow. And then once you get there, you're like, oh wait, so it's all about setting new goals, right? And setting new challenges for yourself and setting a new path as you continue to grow your schools and your schools became successful. We got to talk about it. You were part of, you and Ron Sell came up with Spark. Talk about that a little bit.
You know, um, on a personal note, I've always had this vision of being an entrepreneur beyond just owning martial arts schools. So one of the greatest things that martial arts has given me is the ability to network. When you're teaching, when you're being put in this position in the community, you have all kinds of people walking through your front door and giving you their most valuable, asset, which is their children. And then when you can impact children, the relationship you develop through it is incredible. So I've always had this third eye for other opportunities at entrepreneurship. And I've tried this, I've tried that. I mean, that was one of my, focal visions. I want to be successful beyond martial arts. And and maintained, relationships. And one of the things I was always fascinated since I was, young was technology. Even though I didn't know too much about it, I was always fascinated. I remember even when I opened my first schools, I leased this elaborate computer system with the Blink, with the DOS system, and this big laser printer, which was, you know, in the 80s, early 90s, was a big ordeal back then. I didn't know what I was doing with it, but I got to learn to use it. And back then, software was non-existent, non-existent. And then I remember, I mean, back then, what was it? I think just some of those softwares been around for ages. Would it be the one from Canada company? Was it Perfect Mind or something, or
Mm-hmm.
Champions Way or something like that? Uh, and I would remember working with different software, and I just had a hard time understanding it. I had a really difficulty understanding it, and I remember coming across other softwares. I remember Kicksite. I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." And then Rainmaker came up. I was like, "Oh, wow, this is really." And I really, this was the first software that I could really, really, relate to and understand. So, and Ron Sell, the Cell team was familiar because Ron Sell's father is one of the true American TaeKwonDo Grandmaster that brought TaeKwonDo here and really, really spread it with mom Brenda Sell, who's currently the first American female to have earned ninth degree black belt in KukKiWon. So, and they were based out of Northern Florida. So my father knew his father. They would come to tournament. I remember first time seeing Ron Sell. He was this tall, lanky. Was like about probably 15 years old, and remember wearing these thick glasses, and he jumped over 13 kids and broke a board at my dad's tournament. They did a demonstration, and I remember him doing that. I was like, not bad for a white boy, not bad, not bad. and so after that, I called him and gave him a compliment on how great his work was, and we spent a couple hours just talking. We started talking about how I operate my school, how we do the certain SOPs and stuff. And he was just very, very. And then he's like, you know what? Let me connect with you in a few weeks. And within those few weeks, everything he talked about, he put it on the screen. And I was just blown away by his work. So our friendship started then. And I was also part of. And then later on, I was also co-founder of this organization called KAMA, KAMA, Korean American Martial Artists, predominantly, for TaeKwonDo community and all the seniors. At that time, I was still, at a high level school ownership. I had 6 schools, and my seniors wanted me to get really involved in the juniors, helping the juniors and the martial art community, sharing the success that I've experienced. So, and one year, Ron sponsored it, and I would go to martial arts events and see Ron here and there, and we've always maintained a really good relationship, and became friends. He would come down South Florida, stay at my house, and so there was a solid sense of friendship. And when the opportunity came, and he said, "Hey, listen, here's the situation, and what do you think?" And I'm like, "Hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Hey, let's do this, let's do that. Well, how about we start software?" It's like, "Yeah." And then from there on, everything was history. I mean, without going into the details, I mean, Ronso went through some really, really tough times in the beginning. It was whatever happened over at Rainmaker, without getting into too many details, was an unfortunate event. But that was probably the best thing that could have happened, because without that, Spark would not be in existence. And I mean, I could spend another couple of hours telling you about some really faithful things that happened, in my opinion, was by a higher power. How things happen in certain sequence at that time. It just you know, it was a blessing from the sky, a
Hmm.
blessing from the sky, and two of us, we have a personality wise, it's like the yin and the yang. He's the artist, I'm the business side of things. Um, I make sure my responsibility, along with marketing and business development, his focus is constantly developing Spark into a monster, and nonstop. It's two people pushing in the same direction rather than one.
Hmm.
So we were very blessed because we had a solid core foundation of friendship. So the trust was there. The trust was there, and business is something we never really had to worry about. We always saw things same way. We had the
Hmm.
same vision. I've learned tremendously a lot from him, and I'm sure vice versa. But one of the most important things you know I've learned from Ron was the importance of sharing. Because when I first started coming down into Main Street, I mean, with Kama, we were a very transparent organization. We didn't hold back, and we didn't make any money. It was a great way to network and bring group of martial artists together and really help them grow.
Hmm.
But when I went down to the mainstream of martial arts, it wasn't like that. I mean, I've never seen so many gurus and consultants in a small industry, and the claim of this, claim of that. For $4.99, I will get you to do 50,000 a month. Become part of my mastermind, and this and that, and everybody was so like secretive. And Ron said, you know what I want you to do, Grandmaster Park, is just be total transparent and share all your knowledge, your experience. Just put it out there with
Hmm.
wanting to get nothing back in return. So one of the most important first thing that we did was, hey, let's go out there and just help people. Okay, I mean, software was being developed, and and first and foremost is just sharing everything that's made our schools successful, and and our goal was to just help the industry, elevate the industry, and in return, all we wanted was for school owners to thrive and not struggle anymore, because we've seen so much of that. So many school owners struggle, and the successful ones, to a certain degree, I felt they're always dangling the carrot a little bit, dangling the carrot. And I've talked to so many school owners. I said, I'd pay for that, I'd pay for this. I was part of this mastermind that paid $1,000 a month, and at the
Hmm.
end they're left with hanging with nothing. Which is unfortunate, because that's not the spirit of martial arts.
Right.
That's not the way it's supposed to be done.
Well, it's kind of interesting too. I always think of the Wizard of Oz, right? You look at the Wizard of Oz from the outside, and you're in awe, and then you see behind the curtain, and it's a different story. And that's happened to us in our own schools. When we become instructors, it happens to us as school owners when we become more in tune with the industry. I've seen a lot of the things that you're mentioning, and without going into greater detail, because we're getting a little bit short on time, you've created a program and you've created a culture of giving, which I think, like you said, is in the true spirit of martial arts. Our job as martial artists is to give, and the more we give, you've learned, obviously, and we've learned as martial artists, that the more we give, the more we receive, without asking, without expecting. and that is the spirit. I want to open this up really quick because we got about 3 minutes left. Anybody currently watching right now, if you have any questions for Mr. Park, please drop those in the comments. Love to get any questions for him just to close things up. But I just want to take a minute to thank you so much for all you do in the industry. I think that it's great to see more people that are willing to be transparent and to be open and to be more giving. There are a lot of things going on out there, and I think for the most part, it's becoming more of a trend in the martial arts because of people like you that spread that goodwill. So I hope that continues, and we all learn from that example. So thank you so much for all your time and sharing your story and everything that you've been vulnerable enough to share with us today. There's a lot of information given. If you could close the show with just a little bit of advice to that school owner out there, as far as inspiration or motivation to get to that next level, what would you say to them right now?
It's my mindset. Um, the resource for a school owner to be successful is out there. Okay. But there's a saying that I live by. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. And it's important for you to really understand that. Okay. Because if you're not successful, it's not because of lack of knowledge and resources. You're not successful because your inability to take action. And it's that simple. Okay. And whatever the excuse that you have to justify, oh, that's not in my area. No, that won't work for me. No, I've done that. It doesn't. That is like the worst mindset. And the sad thing is, I was just at a recent event, and I was talking to a part-time school owner, okay, and he's a property manager of a big thing, and he said, "Of course, I wouldn't be full-time." I go, well, have you thought about, I was talking to him. He's like, "No, that won't work. That won't work for me. In my area, it's different. It's and that is such a cop out. Not that particular reason. Whatever the reason you are justifying in your mind to take things to the next level, what's exactly holding you back? It's the man in the mirror. Okay.
True story. True story.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I truly appreciate it. And as we close out the show here, I just want to remind everybody we're here every Monday, and just a couple upcoming guests. We have Paul Logan X Ventimiglia coming up. We got Ricardo Laborio, Jason and Adam Kiefer. We got Rich Grogan and Ali Albarigo. I also have my first 5 months of 2022 scheduled, and your good friend Ron Sell is on that list, so he'll be on here in the next couple months. But Mr. Park, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing all the information and sharing your story with us today.
I appreciate you. You mentioned a lot of Spartans just now. We call them Spartans.
Love it.
All right, guys. Thank you very much, Master Jason Flame. It's an honor. And if there's anything that I can do to serve on a higher level, please let me know. And anybody that's watching this, thank you. I thank you so much. And more importantly, please feel free to reach out to me anytime. Okay. I mean, the entire industry. Okay. I will make time for you, especially to help you to take things to the next level, because I think martial arts is a necessity in our community, changing lives. Let me just leave with the one thought. There's something I believe in. Okay. It's a saying called the power of one. Power of one. The impact that you make, even if it's just one person, can forever change the world. Look what some of these people throughout human history, one person did. Okay. From good to people like, Nelson Mandela, to the evil, like Hitler. Power of one. That's all it takes. And never underestimate the power of one, which is yourself. All right. There are 7 billion people in this planet Earth. Keep in mind, you are the population of one. All right.
Very powerful finish. Thank you so much. We appreciate you and all that you do. I look forward to seeing you perhaps at an event in the future, and we'll keep in touch.
MA Super Show 2022. All
I'll be
right.
there. I'll
Yeah,
be there.
let's
I'll see you
yeah,
then.
be our first gathering. All right, guys.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you guys, everybody. It's Master Motivation, and we're out for today, but we'll see you next Monday with Nathan Carlin. Thank you guys.